Hey guys, Space Marine 658 here. Today we're going to be talking about UENUMs as well as the UMETA specifiers related to them. We're going to talk about them because inside of blueprints, when you create UENUMs or just enums, they actually can't be used inside of C++. So there may be times when you're wanting to use them back and forth. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to create them here in C++. That way we can go ahead and use them inside of our blueprints. To get us started, first we're going to want to do is just create a very basic enum. You don't need a whole lot for this. I'm going to be reusing the class we talked about last time inside of our struct video. So we have our UENUM, and then we want to give it a specifier. So can this be used in blueprint essentially? So this is a UBlueprint type. So we can give it. This makes it so that it can be used inside of blueprints. And then we're going to say enum class, and let's just call this missile guidance. So this will be for my game, so we'll just call this a missile guidance, and this will be a uint8, and let's give us a couple options here. So we'll say terminal guidance. We'll say direct cruise. I don't remember the exact names off the top of my head. I have a list somewhere. I'll go actually correct these once the video's over. But we'll just give a couple here, and let's give ourselves some specifiers for these. So as an example, right, maybe this terminal one is an internal specifier, something that isn't actually set inside of blueprints. So we want this to be hidden. This is not one you will default, a missile to. And we'll give this the UMETA specifier hidden. And what this will mean is this will still be an option when you're setting this enum, but it's not going to be visible inside of the editor. So this is mostly useful for when you're calling a function to set it. So for example, you can still have a function call it inside of C++ and set it to that terminal. You're just not exposing it to the editor, so it can't be accidentally used and set for a missile base guidance type. Now, of course, certain times that'll make sense, certain times it won't. It just depends on what you're using it for. Another thing you can use the UMETA option for is to actually give some description things. So as an example here, we'll also give this the, I guess it wouldn't really make sense to have it here. So we won't do that actually. We won't have the display name here, but we'll add it here on the direct and cruise. We'll give them some display names. So you can also have a tooltip as well. But the nice thing with display name is if you ever have a enum that's got like a weird funky name, so you got to have some underscores to make it a little bit more legible in code. It's for your what they call DX, developer experience. So if you want to have like a better name for it that's more legible in code, but isn't necessarily the exact name you want it in the actual editor, you can then give it a different name here. So instead of, we'll say, maybe this was direct underscore to underscore target. The generated name may not look exactly like that, or maybe that's not the generated name that you want. So you can just give it a different name like direct. And then another thing you can do is you can actually give, you've got tooltips and things like that. And there's a full list, as you'll see here. Of course, I always go back to Unreal Garden. It's got all the really great list of options here where you can set up different UMETA options. There's not a ton for them, but there's a handful here for our UENUMs. But yeah, so once we have that, so we've got these different options here. Let's actually go take a look at this inside of Unreal Engine. All right, so you can see here, I've gone ahead and searched for that missile guidance. As you can see here, there is, of course, always the few options you have depending on your enum, or of course you can go in here and create the enum. We'll do this as a temp variable inside of my player real fast. We'll say missile guidance. There we go. There's our enum. Let's compile and save. Now, of course, terminal is the top option inside of our enum there. So as you can see, even though it is not something that is displayable inside of the editor, what it still does is that it still defaults to that value. But of course, you're only able to select direct and cruise. So if we switch away from this or switch this away from this, then it's no longer an option. So that's something to just be aware of. If you're creating these, that the one you want hidden, they should be at least not the top option. Something else we're going to want to do here while we've got the editor open is let's go ahead and save this real fast and hit a quick compile. Let's go ahead and turn on our live coding real fast. There we go, done. And what we're going to want to do is actually give ourselves a tooltip here. So now we have a display name, right, for direct. Well, one other thing you can do is you can also give yourself a tooltip. And so we can give ourselves a tooltip here and say heads to target directly. And then we'll say, we'll change this cruise maybe to be a top down. That's a type of attack vector. So we'll say this is a top down guidance, and we'll also copy paste this. And we'll give it the display name of top down, and it heads to just above the target. And angles swiftly down to strike the top. All right, so we've got our options there. Let's hit save and then come back into here and then refresh that. And of course, like always, you want to be careful when you're using live coding. They've gotten it a lot better than it was in the old days of hot reloading. But anytime you make large changes or any changes you make to header files, it's always recommended that you close the editor completely, just to prevent yourself from accidentally breaking things, corrupting files, things like that. But you can see here, now we have these two options, right? So let's go ahead and go and refresh this. Make sure, I'm gonna go make sure our live coding has completed. Sometimes it can act a little funky, so let's actually close that blueprint. And then we're going to open that back up here in a second. There we go. All right. And player input instance. All right. Yeah, as you see, it may not update. Okay, yeah. So this is one of those where, as you can see here, it is actually showing that live coding variable. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and close the editor. That's usually a sign that these are not going to want to update until you do a full rebuild, which I figured might be the case. But just in case it would work, I figured I'd go ahead and try to run it. All right, now we're back in. As you can see, it now looks correct. And when we hover over these, you see we get that little tooltip kind of telling us some information about each option. Now, the nice thing is actually by having the refresh there, everything's showing up in both sections. So that's the basics for UENUMs. Now, of course, you want to be as thorough as you can be, you know, giving very specific names and tooltips to help whoever's working on your game, whether it be you or a fellow developer. But yeah, that's it for today. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Next week, my plan is to hopefully have the sort of loading section in. I want to have a video on how to create a compiling shader screen. It is a little bit of a complex topic though, and I'm trying to approach it in a as simple as possible way. So be on the lookout for that. But otherwise, good luck. Good hunting.